The Alley of the Hands. This urban legend involves a priest who in 1780 was supposedly murdered by two teenage boys in a small city in Mexico. The boys were hanged for their crime and their hands were cut off. It's said if you walk down the alley where the priest died during the month of November, you can see a pair of ghostly hands floating above you. La Lechuza is an old woman who, according to legend, turns into a monstrous owl in the dead of the night. Some say the owl will snatch your children out of their beds so she can use them in her occult rituals. Of course, this isn't any ordinary owl. Supposedly, she is a 7-foot owl with a massive 15-foot wingspan. She assumes this shape in order to extract revenge on someone who has mistreated or otherwise wronged her. Some stories claim that she's an old witch intent on finishing her revenge on those who harmed her. Another story tells how La Lechuza is an actual owl, and that she does the bidding for an old woman. It's often compared to a witch's familiar, such as a black cat. The Hitchhiker. This is Mexico's version of the popular vanishing hitchhiker urban legend. Supposedly, a beautiful woman will occasionally be seen hitchhiking on the highway at night. She will give her address to whoever offers her a ride, but when they show up to her home, she is no longer there. Most will feel guilty and go back the next day just to make sure she arrived home safe. Then they will find out that the woman that they seen in their vehicle the night before has been dead for several years. This is a very popular urban legend. I believe every state has one. The Lady in White, the Hitchhiker. So I believe every single state, every country, they have something similar to this. The Man Who Whistles. This legend is about a man called El Saban, who killed his father in cold blood and devoured his organs. He is now doomed to wander the earth alone, whistling an unsettling tune and carrying a sack full of his father's bones. People who hear the whistle are supposed to meet a gruesome end shortly thereafter. The whistler is said to sit in trees and gather dust in his hands, but it's mainly on rainier, humid nights that the spirit wanders, hungry for death and eager to punish drunkards, womanizers, and sometimes innocent victims. It is said to drink alcohol out of the drunks through their navel when it finds them, and then it tears womanizers to pieces, removing their bones and putting them in the sack where he keeps the remains of his father. Some versions say it appears as a giant of about 6 meters that moves above the treetops, creaking and emitting the chilling whistle. Other versions say it appears as a shadow of a tall, thin man with a hat and goes after drunks most of all. They say that the whistler can appear by a house on certain nights, drop his sack on the ground, and count the bones one by one. If no one hears it, nothing will happen. But if someone does hear it before dawn, one member of the family will never wake up again. The Bad Hour. This legend is about an evil demon who wanders the night stalking victims who travel alone. Those who catch a glimpse of her eyes peering out of the shadows are said to go insane. She appears as a woman in all black floating above the ground. The Mexican Ghost Bus. Right outside of the city of Toluca, Mexico, there was supposedly a horrible bus accident that killed everyone on board. If you walk down that particular section of highway at night, some say you can see the bus and the driver will even pick you up. Everyone on board is dead, however, and the driver will eventually kick you off before you reach your destination, saying, "Go now and don't look back." The Benito Juarez Park. This park was supposedly constructed near the remains of an old cemetery. After park security guards found signs of vandalism several nights in a row, they set up a camera to catch the suspect. They saw a shadowy image of an old woman in a long white dress. The ghost became known as the Phantom of the Park. The ghost of the woman causes health problems and even death to those who have the misfortune of coming in contact with her. One night, as a security guard was watching the park, he saw a shadowy figure lurking near the park benches. It looked like an old woman in a long white dress. Believing that she was up to no good, the guard followed her and saw her breaking and damaging the park benches. When he got closer, he was horrified to see that she had no legs and she was floating above the ground. All of a sudden, the woman attacked him and began to beat him fiercely. He managed to escape, and in the morning, still trembling, he told his bosses what had happened. Soon afterwards, the man was suddenly struck down with a mysterious illness. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and a few days later, he died. The city decided to hire another security guard to replace him. The same thing happened to him. One night when the new guard was on patrol, he was confronted by a ghostly old woman. She rushed at him and began beating him furiously. Within days, the terrified man became seriously ill, but unlike the previous watchman, he managed to survive and eventually recovered. The doctors still couldn't explain what the mysterious illness was or what had caused it. All they knew, it was the same disease that had killed the previous watchman. City officials tried to hush it up and keep it out of the newspapers, but eventually word spread, and no one was willing to stand guard at the park at night. The benches were still being vandalized, and the city just had to put up with it and keep repairing the damage. El Cucuy. El Cucuy is essentially the Mexican version of the boogeyman. It's a shape-shifting creature that hides in the closets and underneath beds. Children who disobeyed their parents were said to be eaten by the El Cucuy. Mexican parents often warn their children, behave yourself or El Cucuy will come get you and take you away. El Chupacabra, also known as goatsucker. El Chupacabra supposedly attacks animals, specifically goats, and drains them of their blood. Many people claim it's actually the work of a wolf or a rabid raccoon, but there are those who believe El Chupacabra does in fact exist. The name is derived from the Spanish word chupar, which means to suck, and cabra, which means goat. As a fearsome but probably non-existent creature, the chupacabra has been characterized as the southern equivalent of Sasquatch. The chupacabra only recently joined the vampire in the bestiary of blood-sucking creatures. Chupacabra was first reported in 1995, where they were blamed for attacks on goats, sheep, and other domestic animals, supposedly leaving uneaten carcasses that were drained of blood. Early reports described a creature that stood upright and resembled a large reptilian kangaroo with huge red eyes. No actual specimens were found, and skeptics suggested that the witnesses may have been influenced by the Hollywood science fiction horror film Species in 1995, which features a monster similar in appearance, but other sightings were reported throughout the Americas and as far north as the United States. A different type of chupacabra was also reported in many of the same places. These chupacabras were smaller and stood upon 4 feet. They were generally canine in appearance, but hairless. Actual specimens were produced, but they were identified by biologists as coyotes, dogs, or canine hybrids. These animals owed their strange appearance to hair loss resulting from mange, although most people do not believe that these are coyotes or dogs that had mange. They do believe that it is the chupacabra. The Mannequin in Chihuahua, Mexico. There is a store that has a strangely realistic mannequin wearing a bridal gown. The mannequin has been there for over 70 years and is said to be the preserved daughter from a previous owner. Most people believe that she is not actually a mannequin, that she is an embalmed corpse. Visitors from all over the world have been lured to a wedding gown shop in Chihuahua, Mexico, to study the spooky, lifelike bridal mannequin in the window. Most are so captivated by the mesmerizing gaze that they leave convinced that she is a mummy rather than a dummy. The Island of the Dolls. Just south of Mexico City sits a creepy island full of old dolls. Apparently, they're dedicated to a young girl who drowned years ago. The girl's spirit is said to inhabit all of the dolls on the island. Although dolls scare me greatly, this is definitely one place I would love to go and see for myself. So many people have had so many experiences here on this island. La Llorona. Of course, we could not do Mexico without doing one of the most famous urban legends in Mexico. This urban legend states that a woman was unloved by her husband, and that her husband loved her 2 children instead of her. She caught her husband with another woman and then drowned her kids in the river. Out of grief and anger, she then drowned herself. She was refused entry into heaven until she found the souls of her 2 children. She cries and wails and takes children and drowns them in the river that she drowned herself and her kids in. The legend represents La Llorona as a person or a ghost. People who have claimed to see her say that she appears at night or in the late evening by the river or lakes, wearing a white gown with a veil. Some believe those who hear the wails of La Llorona are marked for death or misfortune. People say that they can hear her screaming, "Oh, my children, oh, my children, where are my kids? Where are my kids?" She scrapes the bottom of the rivers and lakes searching for her children. It is said that when her wails sound near, she is actually far, and when she sounds distant, she is actually near. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this series and you like hearing about urban legends around the world, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't. We are so thankful for everyone that supports our channel, and we appreciate every single one of you. This has been a fun series that I'm starting. Mexico definitely has a lot of urban legends. We've already done one before that we did Japan, and we've got a lot more to come, so be sure and hit that bell so you can be notified whenever we do put up another video. Thanks, guys. Love y'all. Bye.